Hi, this is Jetter, and welcome to our show today. Today we will be discussing the current affairs that are going on in our country, and especially the economic sort of like meltdown that's going on, and also what we consider general American discontent. You see it in the representation with the Tea Party. You see it with the Occupy movement on Wall Street. You see it with the 99ers. You see it with everyone except corporate America. So why is it in this time of economic downturn are most people voting against their own best interest? And why are most people, when they look at media coverage of the Occupy movement, so negative about it? When in fact, if we all really saw what the issues were, we might be joined together as opposed to being torn apart. For our first video today comes from the Occupy Boston movement. And so we're going to just go into that tape and you judge for yourself.
And why am I here? I'm here because I'm fed up with the corporate greed and the corruption in this country and the financial irregularities that have gone unmet, unchallenged by our Congress and our president at this point in time. And people are everybody's hurting, people losing their jobs left and right. And even some of the faces peering out of the windows today, you can see are fearful because tomorrow they may be out of work as well.
Well, I'm here because I think this is the beginning. I'm hoping that this is the beginning of a larger movement. We've seen something start off in Occupy Wall Street, and I'm hoping that this becomes a larger movement where people finally get on the streets because they're really fed up of what's going on.
I'm not very political, but I do have a lot of concerns. I continually see things that I find disturbing. Overall, I have a lot of disagreements with the way that the economic system in the United States is kind of run at the moment. And personally, just because I'm a college student right now, and I just know so many people who are struggling so much. Everyone I know, people who are well off, people who are not well off, everyone is struggling so much. And, you know, it's just, we're in a system where none of these people can seem to get any help, even though all they want to do is get a college education. And I just think that's unfair and ridiculous.
I'm here because a lot of criminals got away with a lot of stealing during this particular economic crisis, and the biggest thieving binge in the history of the United States is ongoing. That's why I'm here. I'm here because I'm tired of living in fear of what tomorrow will bring. I'm here because a simple safety net is considered by a lot of people in certain parties to be something extraordinary, unusual, and even evil.
And the reason why I'm here is because I've been out of work 3 years. I have a master's degree, and I can't even get a temporary job. So these past 3 years have been hell for me. And I did not really get involved in politics until probably last year. And I started seeing, that things were not right, with the collapse of the financial collapse, and then starting to realize how much Wall Street owns Congress, and it's like it's a losing game for us. We're the 99%, and that's why I'm here, is because I'm the 99%. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not a billionaire, and I can't get a job.
I'm part of the 99%. See a government and a political and economic system that's bailing out banks and funding decade-long wars that are leaving body counts that people have just stopped counting. I see people being foreclosed on and living in the streets. I see unemployment that's way underreported, and I'm tired of it.
Actually, I kind of looked upon this. I was coming from work. Actually, I got laid off today at work. Yeah. So, it happens. So today was my last day at work. I had a couple of beers, and I was on my way out to the train, and I found this group of brethren, and I just asked people what was going on.
Being 2 years in hell with Bank of America mortgage modification, I wrote to everyone. Like, I follow all the steps, first with the bank, then with the government officials. They don't care. They just send you a template letter thinking that you will go away. No, this time people are not going away. We are going outside. We are taking away our streets. We're taking away our country.
I was hoping to do a mortgage modification, and I got caught up in that you don't qualify, and then you can't do it because you don't have a job, and even though you need it, you can't do it. And then I sent them my paperwork, and then they asked for it again because they'd lost it, and I just kind of followed it for a few months and realized that I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to have my credit ruined for nothing. I didn't want to get caught in the quicksand. So I sat back and I waited. I've spent all of my savings on a toxic loan, and what I see is that people have been thrown out of their houses. Many people have been thrown out of their houses that don't even have a mortgage. They don't have a mortgage. They don't have a loan. Or they've paid it off. Or the banks are absolutely crazed. The whole securitization process is screwed. The whole financial system in the country is screwed.
I'm here because I'm an organic farmer, and part of what we do at my farm is we donate food to charity. Over the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen a huge increase in the demand for food because there are a lot more people that are in need and in trouble.
I'm here because I don't believe that it's right that 1% of the population has so much power and so much money.
Top 1% of our country has too much of the wealth, too much of the power, and the bottom 99% is not heard at all. So I'm here to make our voices heard.
I'd like to see a movement that grows that is contrary to the economic thinking of these days. A movement that wants to just change the fact that 1% of the people control 50% of the wealth.
No, it's our republic has been hijacked by Wall Street and big corporations, and I'm here for me, I'm here for my children, and I'm here for my grandchildren that are not yet born.
Matthew, I'm here for the same reason that I was a marcher at the anti-Vietnam War movement at the Pentagon in the 1960s, and I made that leap of faith and joined the movement to make a better world for my son and my grandsons to come. And now my grandsons are in their teens and there's no tuition money for them. My son is unemployed and can't find anything. My Social Security doesn't pay my rent. And I really understand that we were sold out. And it fits a kind of long-term not caring about the middle class or the lower class. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and we've lost our middle class. And so that's why I'm here, because I'm angry and I'm determined and I'm supporting the young people that are here, and I hope they're supporting the grannies.
And we need to have an elevated conversation where we recognize our privileges and that there really is an equality of opportunity, that there's systemic discrimination going on every day, and it makes it hard for people to make it. Everybody wants to make it, and you need to recognize, the privileges that you're born with.
The situation in which the general populace in this country and across the world, in fact, has been systematically done over by a small group of people. And this is not something which is done by accident. It has happened over a long period of time. It's happened to people who are now feeling extraordinarily powerless.
Money doesn't talk, it swears, as Bob Dylan said. Political spending is not free speech, and corporations are not people.
We're closing schools. We're privatizing prisons.
And it doesn't matter. They give tax breaks to oil companies, but meanwhile they want to cut heating assistance for elderly people.
Just about everybody that's not in the top 1% in this country is struggling in one way or another, and worldwide it's no better.
Well, I will tell you that I am currently unemployed, and 45% of people that are between 16 and 29 are also unemployed.
It's like I come work like 4 months, and then like another 2 months I'm laid off, and I work another 4 months, and it's like 2 months I'm laid off. And it's not like I'm lazy or like, I don't like want a job. I do want a job. I want a permanent job. It's just like, there's just none out there.
I think that people are really fed up with a system that rewards rich people and financiers with millions and billions, while millions and billions of us starve in one way or another, whether it's for education, for decent jobs, for actual food. I think people are fed up. I think this whole country is percolating with an energy that is just looking for an outlet, and I think this can be a part of that.
Some people they lost hope. We lost hope in 2008. I voted for Obama. I'm not saying that he's bad, but I don't know what's his deal, but he has Wall Street with him. So we lost hope. So when you lose hope so many times, you just think like whatever I do, nobody's listening. Not true. When people see this on the TV, because media is now here. For 2 weeks we've been in New York. They were ignoring us. But you can't ignore people. So now when the rest of people see us here, this is hope. Everybody will be together.
And, everybody says, oh, you can't do anything. There's nothing you can do about it. I never really bought that.
And I've been waiting for, I keep saying, I wonder when people are going to hit the streets. And I had no clue that it was going to happen like this, and I am so happy.
I would say I understand why you're skeptical about a bunch of people camping out in a park. I would also urge them to come down and see it for themselves.
You can't make a difference just sitting at your house, keeping it in. You have to come out and share your experience with everyone else and realize that there's a lot of people out there that feel the same way that you do.
Turn off Dancing with the Stars and, come and the whole world is doing this. Come and meet your neighbors and, just get involved.
I would say that they should be here, or if there's one in their area, then they should be a part of it, because mostly everyone who's watching this is probably part of that 99%.
You are the 99%. You can help.
They're all here for a reason. We are the 99%. So we need to stick together.
We're all in this together. We are the 99% of people in this country. We are the 99%, all of us here.
I say come to the party. It's just starting.
The more people who are here, the more attention we get. So the more likely we can make a change.
Join this group. Join across this country and wherever you can.
Join us. We're all in this together.
Why aren't you here? Get out here. Come on.
If they are not here, they should be here. This is the time.
Come out. Our republic, our future, our planet is at stake. We need to take back our country and restore democracy.
I would say come down here and be a part of what we're doing, no matter who you are.
Come down and talk to people. I don't know what people are seeing in the media or will see if they see anything. Most likely they'll get a very kind of clownish, one-sided picture of what's going down here. Come down and talk to these people. Don't be afraid to admit that you want to see things change too.
Come on down.
I would say, specifically to someone like my father, come down and have a look before I get an earful about it.
You'll be here soon.
So that was really an excellent depiction, I believe, of what is going on these days down at Occupy Wall Street in Boston. That was taken back in September, and I was down there actually just today, and I found that it was really pretty incredible. And I want to take this time right now to introduce my guest, and his name is Kevin Lepman. He is a musician, activist, or an activist musician, And because, you know, we sit there and we talk about all of these problems, and as we listened to that video, we saw the video, the one thing that was really interesting about it was that you saw a cross-section, like a microcosm of the country. You just didn't see homeless people. You didn't see, you know, just young people, but you saw older people. You saw, you know, people who obviously first-generation Americans. You saw people who've been here probably all their lives. And what seems to be the most uniting factor is that everybody is suffering. You know, everybody is suffering, and yet and still, when you look in the media, you're not seeing that. You know, you're just seeing, you know, the angry people. So what is your take on that, Kevin? How do you, when you looked at that video, what was your impressions?
Well, I think that's right. And I think those are the values that's been at the core of the values that they have set down at all of the Occupy sites, is a very inclusive one.
Right.
Doesn't mean that there aren't issues with being inclusive, but that's been a very clear tenet from the beginning, and that the 99% itself speaks to that inclusion, that it's all of the groups that are being screwed in one way or another.
Right.
And that it's very clear that they can unite if they can find some kind of common space, some kind of common language, maybe very straightforward language, to speak to the various ways in which they're being screwed.
That's true. And you know, the thing that really gets me is that it seems to be the branding or the commercialization of the message, which is the schism between the two groups. Because if you look at, you know, the Tea Party, you know, they're talking about wasted money, you know. And if you look at the 99%ers, who actually originally were people who had maxed out on their 99 weeks of unemployment, and the occupiers, which are actually really a different group. But, you know, as we sit there and we talk about all these issues, what seems to be the most defining is people trying to make a difference. And Kevin is a co-founder of the Hog Festival. And I just want to, right now, we have this great video that they did. And it talks about different ways, especially as artists, for us to show our sort of our discontent about what's going on now, without being both, shall we say, canned, commercial, branded, or Fox-like.
Right.
So we have a video that Kevin was very. What's the word I'm looking for that I can't find, that he let us have, and we are now going to show that video. So watch this and enjoy it.
The Hog Festival is a gathering of activist street bands from around the United States and increasingly around the world who make music for the fun of making music, for playing music on the street, and for articulating ideas about who we are and where we live, and asking questions about what society could be. Why don't we reclaim public thoroughfares, the streets, as places where people can get together and articulate their ideas, have fun, to have entertainment that's free and open.
Why do we need Hog? Have you looked at the headlines lately? Have you felt the squeeze? Have you felt your rights being abrogated? Have you felt the fact that it's difficult more than ever to express yourself politically in the streets now?
whenever we can, we go to anti-war protests or protests on specific issues that we want to lend our support to. We've done some work on the Second Vermont Republic, which is the secessionist movement. We've done some anti-nuclear power protests. We've done all sorts of things.
We're extremely serious people about it. We're very serious about anarchy. We play in a lot of demonstrations.
For refugees, anti-war.
For migrant labor.
Or just for labor in general.
We're kind of a guerrilla band. We show up in places that are unexpected and sometimes wanted, sometimes not, but always unexpected.
And historically, songs have motivated people. Think about the Civil Rights Movement when they sang "We Shall Overcome." Further back, the songs of World War II, and even further, music inspires people.
It's an emotional connection.
Right.
It grabs people on a deeper level than just intellectually. And for that reason, I think it can really affect social change.
And I think the idea that music can be one part of your life, that you can, that anybody can play music is a political statement about kind of ownership of culture. And then number two, being able to bring a non-amplified music into the streets and play directly to people and involve people in music also breaks down that barrier that tells you that music and culture are things that are bought.
Fight fascism! Right here.
Just going out there and playing music that a lot of people can hear because it's loud is itself a political act. It's a radical political act.
$20 gold coin on my watch chain. Let all the boys know that I don't stand in pain.
Because there's a lot of debate on what is acceptable and unacceptable noise in public space. You know, people are generally okay with traffic and trains and construction, but like, you get one guy sitting in front of a store with a guitar and somebody calls the cops. When you're on the street instead of on a stage, people feel a lot more comfortable just coming up and interacting with the band, whether it's like picking up and playing an instrument, which is sometimes cool and sometimes a problem. Or, you know, it's like dancing, getting crazy. Like, there's less of a boundary between performer and audience when you're on the street. Hey, good to see you again. Enjoy the festival. He was dancing with us earlier.
But it's so much more fun to go in the street because you never know what's gonna happen. And I love the fact that I walk in a venue and I don't know what is gonna be there. If the crowd is gonna be cool, if there will be even like a lot of people, are they gonna be looking at us? Are they gonna dance? And are there gonna be other groups passing by that we can invite to actually play together? So this mystery is just like awesome. It's great to be in a festival like home because like you don't know what's gonna happen. The crowd was fantastic tonight.
Who knows how to dance hip hop?
We also have a social project that tries to outreach the community and teach the youth what you just saw in Hog Festival. And that's the thing that actually we're most proud of, is to provide something to the youth to avoid gang formation. They should be in the street, but how about being in the street playing music?
The most fun people to watch in the audience are usually the really little kids. And I saw one little tiny kid, and his mom was like moving his arms and sort of making him dance, but he was just standing like that for the entire set of music. And I mean, that seems like a really nice, genuine reaction, and one that probably most people are experiencing, but because they're adults, they don't really show that.
My hope for it is it will make this impression upon their minds, their souls, that they're going to want to make music, or they're going to want to appreciate it and be part of that whole thing, you know?
I'm absolutely going to be drumming something and wearing a crazy costume. Had I known maybe this morning, I would have thrown something together, but, you know, it's just serendipitous how this all happened, you know, but all I can really do now is...
Music moves you. I mean, it's a sonic action that moves across the space from the instrument to the person who's hearing it, and it literally vibrates them. That's a change from the moment before to the moment after. I think it gives people the idea, the feeling of change.
To go out in the street with a band, a brass band or whatever, and to have giant figures and signs. It's really strong, it's accessible, you don't need electricity, you don't need a computer, you don't need to have internet access, you don't need a lot of money, you just need thought and friends and the availability of public space, and you can go out there and articulate your ideas. For us, this is like the essence of democracy in a way. It's the performance of democracy.
When I move through the space, when I make a gesture, when I come up to an audience member and dance with them, that's a change from the moment before to the moment after. That is, dare I say, not evolution, but revolution.
You got tubas in your face, and you can't ask for anything better than that.
It's a festival of activist street bands, monkeys.
Well, you know, it has to do with geese.
It's like going to school. You know, I feel like I'm seriously in class at every show.
Punk is the weirdness that doesn't exist the rest of the year that I wish existed more often.
It's like Burning Man without the DJs.
Something about the peace and something
it's
like that,
like
no?
activist, no?
Against war. Yeah, you can talk too much.
Punk is a combination of New Year's Eve, spring break, Mardi Gras, and the 4th of July.
Honk, 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 honk.
You're a co-founder of that, aren't you?
Of the festival, yes.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, a few years ago, members of my band had heard of some other bands like ours. I'm in
Mm-hmm.
a local activist street band with a very long, hard to remember name, the Second Line Social Aid and Pleasure Society Brass Band. And we get our inspiration from New Orleans and from the music, both old
Right.
and new music in New Orleans, which very much is the one place in the United States that still has a tradition of street music. But we've been an activist street band, which means that we play for a good cause. We rarely play for money, and when we do, we put it towards a good cause, like the Hog Festival. We had heard that there were other bands like ours. We were just talking in Brooklyn. There's a couple of great
Right.
radical marching bands in Brooklyn, but also all over Portland, San Francisco, and we thought, wouldn't it be great to bring some of these bands together? And I got to say, it turned out to be like just extraordinarily crazy, wonderful, beyond anyone's imagination that first year, because it was all of these bands, even if they were very different, obviously shared some real values, and they could saturate Davis Square for a day in these alternative values, these notions of difference and inclusion and spectacle and art, always though with a kind of undertone to making a better world and to sharing that
Right.
world with others.
And so when you think about what you're doing and you transpose that against the Occupy movement, it just really seems like they're all the same. You know what I mean? Really. I mean, it's activism, and it's.
I think it's drawing on some of the same urges.
Right.
There's a yearning out there. There's a yearning, I think, to have an authentic form of expression that is not commercially mediated in all the thousands of ways that we are very good at mediating messages, which is fine. But people want to express themselves in an unmediated way. And
Right.
there aren't many opportunities.
Right, exactly.
And we're at a time when people need to express themselves in that unmediated
Right.
way. Because the moment it's mediated through the news, through whatever channel you're using, it takes on the aura, I think, of interest and inauthenticity that people are trying to avoid.
Why don't we just say with the real world where it is, and that would be corporate, ownership. I mean, coming from the press, it's media concentration, correct? And it's branding, because that's what corporations do.
Right, and it means that all messages that are out there, including art, all of the art that's out there, even if it is authentic itself, it's still in the service of any number of other things.
Okay, so I mean, really you believe that? So that you believe that it can still be authentic within the corporate idiom, I guess, Because it doesn't seem like, I don't see much authentic art out there that's...
Well, I mean, I don't maybe want to quibble with what the word authenticity is. I'm saying there are very, very talented, popular artists out there that create great art.
Right.
But then the rest of us mostly are called on to consume that art.
I understand.
And to consume it either as a pure distraction in itself or, frankly, to go shopping.
Right.
So most space is not public, it's private and it's controlled, and the music and images and messages that are all bombarding people are there for a reason, and they're usually, directly or indirectly, a commercial reason.
Right.
There's nothing, there's no conspiracy, it's just the way our society has worked out.
So you don't think it's a conspiracy? You don't think globalization is a conspiracy? I mean, that's a question. I'm not saying that it is or it isn't. You think it's just a happenstance of human nature?
I didn't mean to say a happenstance. I only mean to say that there aren't individual people pulling levers. But there's no question that our society has unfortunately selected for an information system that up until recently has been very much controlled by not only the mainstream media, but all of the other direct and indirect commercial interests that surround that.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, for me, as someone who used to work in the press full time, I definitely see that there is a media concentration, was set into motion by the Telecom Deregulation Act?
Sure, that was a big step
that
forward.
That really wasn't a happenstance.
Absolutely not.
That was deliberate.
Those laws were made on behalf of...
It was economic,
Absolutely.
and it was political.
Absolutely.
So my question is how do you reach people who, like I said before, vote against their best interest? Like most of the people you see at the Tea Party rallies that I covered were older people who are going to need Social Security, who are probably going to need Medicaid, Medicare, some form of that. And yet and still, because there's this partisan thing between Republican and Democrat as opposed to your best interest and corporate interests, how do you reach those people? Is it through art? Is it through music?
I definitely think art can help. And I say that in part because I think where it has to begin is it has to be a genuine yearning or desire on their part to speak out.
Gotcha.
You can't force someone to go and protest.
Gotcha.
So I think you want to hook into the various ways in which many groups in our society right now are fed up. They all have good reasons to be fed up. But then give them, in order to express values of the future that would give them the right to speak in their voice the way they want, you really have to design social protests so that it allows for that inclusion, so that it allows for them to have a voice.
Right.
So, for example, for years and years and years, the kind of protest left has relied on really the most unimaginative script, which is that you get someone with a megaphone and maybe a band whose heart is in the right place, and you yell a bunch of commandments about how the world ought to be better and the laws that need to be changed. That's a nice rational argument that in our society that's completely commercial, spectacle, and saturated, they're never going to go to that. If they're walking in the park and they hear that megaphone, they're going to walk in the opposite direction. And so I think that the social protest, the resurgence of an art-infused social protest in this country has to make that spectacle something that's frankly fun. And fun can be a political moment if you're having fun for a reason. And that's how you draw in, I think, all of these various groups. One of the most impressive protests I've seen on the Boston Common, and I've seen, unfortunately been witness to just abysmally very, very uninspiring ones. The most inspiring ones I've been to, well, one I remember in particular a couple of years ago, was over immigration. And this was a time when every single group from Roxbury, Dorchester, Chelsea, you saw people and communities that you didn't see before, and these people knew how to have a good time. There was music everywhere. In fact, you were walking from maybe a Dominican band to, the sounds of some Haitian band. They knew that this protest, this day, had to be in part a celebration, even if it was also, they were there because they were very, very fearful. I mean, this was such an important issue that it brought out lots of communities that don't generally come out. That's how you do it.
But that's interesting because I think that what's at stake now is even more severe. And yet and still, you can't get people, I mean, they're sitting there listening to, I mean, not to be partisan, but listening to Herman Cain talk about 999, and they'll listen to anything he says because people have been so convinced that Obama, is a Muslim and he's not born in the United States. So is it just the branding that's gotten it, that they can't hear past the ideology?
For me, this is less about the people that are listening to Herman Cain and voting. It's more about the 50% completely disenfranchised who don't vote at all.
So who are those people, though? I've never met those people. I mean, no, when I say disenfranchised, well, okay.
I'm saying it's those,
So who are those people, those 50%? So, I mean, I feel disenfranchised, but I vote. So you mean people who don't vote at all?
I'm saying there are many, many Americans who don't vote.
Okay.
And those people, quite understandably, have been completely disenfranchised by the money, even before Citizens United, but certainly since Citizens United. They don't think for a moment that normal either national or even state politics has anything to do with them.
Okay.
And for me, the way you get them to see that there's something they could do about that situation is not just going and telling them to vote, but it is to get them hopefully involved in something community-oriented that is rewarding today, not in the future.
But now,
that brings together, it's not a particular church, it's not a particular party, it's not a particular hobby. You're being brought together because you're neighbors and because you're all in one way or another suffering right now. And if you can make that fun, then you get them.
Right. Okay, well, let's go back to the word disenfranchised. Because I guess yes, I know many people are disenfranchised. I don't really believe in the political system, yet I vote. And, you know, are the, I mean, who are, I mean, where are these people? I mean, are they mostly urban, or are they rural, or are they spread out, you know, against the American landscape? Because, you know, I don't understand how, I personally, being from Berkeley, California, being born and raised, you know, being way left, you know, I don't understand that. I mean, I know what it means to be socially, I'm a black woman, believe me, I know what being disenfranchised is.
Right.
But, I mean, I am that, you know. I mean, also, I mean, on a personal note, I'm a 99er. You know, I lost my job 2.5 years ago. And, you know, so I understand this movement from a very organic thing. But what I cannot understand, and maybe it's just me, is who are these people who are not moved into action by their very livelihood being taken away from them?
There are people, as I say, who don't think that voting once every 4 years is going to change anything. They probably think they don't know enough about the issues to make a responsible decision, but mostly they just don't have time to carve out that time in their life, in their daily life. They are truly struggling.
Wow.
It's not just single moms, but it certainly is a lot of
there's a lot of single moms
who are holding down 2 jobs, or
no
moms
jobs.
and dads who are each holding down 2 jobs. Right. And that's in the suburbs, it's in urban areas,
everywhere.
and it's in the countryside. It's everywhere. That's right.
Yeah, it is everywhere. I guess just, honestly, maybe because I'm one of those, what do they call us, Northeastern intellectuals. You know, I mean, I know theoretically. I just cannot put my head around it, I guess.
They're certainly not people that comment on and think about and either go to school for or appear on television to talk about the state of the world.
Right.
Nor should they need to be.
Nor
because
should they need
most
to,
other
right.
advanced industrialized countries
Right.
have people who may not spend their lives thinking about politics and society, but they vote.
Right,
and they think their
right,
vote
right.
matters. And these people aren't all of that 99%. They're trying to reach out to many of those other
Right,
99%
exactly.
who did vote. Most of these people, actually, certainly most of the students, I bet you did vote for
Of
the
course
first
they
time in
did.
the last election. And they're saying,
absolutely.
you know, we got screwed. We thought we voted in
Right.
change and we didn't get it.
You know, I was listening to this statistic that was saying that there are 49 million Americans living under the poverty line.
That
which
we
I
know
am one,
about.
that we know about,
know about.
which I am one of them. You know, I live under the poverty, you know, and, you know, I'm not lazy, you know, and it's, so I want to get back to Honk though, because one of the things that happened when I first saw Honk is it just blew me away. I had no idea it was particularly political, but it definitely, but you don't really get it. I mean, there are anarchists there. There are other people whose political associations are not even known. So, I mean, is there a political platform, or is there just something that goes as an undercurrent?
That's a great question, and we have, I can tell you right now, that the festival from its inception has asked itself that question. And like these bands, that's intrinsic to the kind of groups these are, in that they will always be asking those questions, even if they reach different answers. And so some of these bands have asked themselves, are we a political band? And decided, no, we aren't. But asking that question already puts them, to me, in a different group than most other, not just musical groups, but artistic groups out
Right.
there. And it's because they're asking themselves, well, what do we represent? And how is this band and the way we organize it? Is it a democracy? Can anyone join the band? All the bands have different answers to these questions, but the questions are all about how do we see our mission beyond just making music? And for all of them, even the non-political ones, their job isn't complete unless you have the feeling that you talked about just now when you said you were blown away.
I was
There's
blown
1,000
away.
ways. And what is it that blows you away? It certainly isn't the fact that there were no wrong notes or that you heard everything was completely in tune from the moment beginning to end. It was, in some sense, because it was not, and yet it sounded completely beautiful and musical.
Right.
And that's a different goal
Right.
than the standard musical expression or artistic expression in our society. Obviously, the intent is different.
Right.
And we've succeeded if the people who encounter us on the street have that feeling.
Right. So you guys have hooked up with the Occupy Boston movement, correct?
We have, yes. They've had several. One of the ways in which they've been inclusive and encouraged inclusion is to team up with coalition partners such as Labor, SEIU marches, the Veterans for Peace. And many of those groups in turn know about our band and some of the other activist bands around. So it's partly through them that we'll do a parade maybe in downtown and then wind up at the Occupy Boston site. And so we're getting introduced to, again, a whole new potential recruit set up here where we could introduce people not just to, there's been a lot of drum circles, but just the power of music to change the tenor of these marches. And time again, they'll come up and say, we've been parading the last 3 days, but when the band showed up, something changed.
Well, that's music. That's art.
It's the power of art.
And it really is.
It is.
So, as an activist.
People's art.
People's art. Well, right, exactly. But, so as an activist, you've been around for, doing this for a while, since you're 29, right? And as am I. But, so what do you think the next stage is? Because everyone who's talking about the Occupy movement, they're always saying, well, they can't stay here, because we all know what's going on in Oakland and even in Wall Street. Boston's a little bit different, However, what's next? I mean, what do you see as far as, the next step forward?
I don't know, but what is one of the things that's really exciting about what's happening right now is that it is forcing a discussion not just about the 99%, not just about inequality in this country, but actually most directly about the future of public space in our country.
Yes.
Each of these spaces, and if I was back in school doing a thesis, I would do a chapter on each of these Occupy sites because they all have a story. Here in Boston, they just, I don't know, probably not by happenstance, but it's the Rose Kennedy Greenway that owns that. And that's its own story about their relationship to free speech. So I think there will have to be some discussion about, well, where can people have this kind, where can they fulfill this need to express themselves? And we may find out that there are precious few places anywhere in this free country to do that.
That's true.
That in turn might lead to something better than the, what did they call the fenced-in areas, the kind of freedom zones?
Oh, right.
Free
Like
speech zones.
Like at the DNC and the RNC.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My hope actually would be, and I could imagine even in the foreclosure crisis, in fact, there's already a movement to take over some of these nefarious places and have what would in Europe be called a squat.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's, I have a glimmer in my eye about the potential to have community spaces where people could come together to do something other than shop or play video games, and imagine how they would create not just art and expression, but maybe their own forms of kind of schooling and community involvement on those public spaces. In the short run, though, I don't think there are these opportunities. I don't think there is much public space. And yeah, I don't think the powers that be are going to stand for it.
Well, of course not. I mean, isn't it, it's globalization versus national interest,
Right, and I don't see, I mean, not just the outcome just most recently with the super committee, but it's really hard to imagine.
The super committee?
it's hard to imagine getting some kind of legislative resolution to any of these issues in the next year.
Right.
So I don't see how this movement can't eventually, if it's going to go anywhere, evolve into some kind of national electoral movement to say something.
It should. I mean, if you think about it, this really is more akin to the people in the Revolutionary War, the war with England, versus civil rights. Everybody's talking about, it's a civil rights issue. I'm not saying it isn't a civil rights issue, but this is really more basic freedoms.
It's beyond what we traditionally think of as the purview of civil rights.
Correct.
And that's mostly because, like you said before, it's awful for everyone now.
Everyone.
Now it's awful for the white middle class and upper middle class that are seeing their own futures and their own kids' futures dashed. And yeah, at that point, I think what you're talking about is maybe not a constitutional convention, but you're talking about seriously reorganizing how Congress is going to make laws.
What was that old saying, when fascism comes to America? We'll be draped in the flag and carrying a Bible, right? and it'll probably be drinking Coca-Cola. And because it's a corporate-driven interest.
I would say I would go broader though. I mean, fascism, even corporatism is not, it's fundamentalism of every brand.
Exactly,
and whether
exactly.
it's market fundamentalism or Christian fundamentalism or any
Right.
kind of fundamentalism, this country thrived by getting away from that.
Right.
And we need to reclaim that non-fundamentalist core again. And it is out there. I don't have any hesitation
No,
that it's out there.
it's out there. I just wonder what it's going to take. Because like the immigration marches were amazing. I was down in D.C. and they actually stopped that law from coming in to be. I mean, they didn't change immigration law, but they certainly stopped what was coming, into the fore. And I think what was so amazing about it, it was so dynamic. Absolutely, so dynamic. And it was scary. I think it scared, white men, the middle class, the status quo. And not just that, I think it scared corporate America. And that, Arizona and other states have tried to bring in those laws, but it stopped it.
No, I think the backlash we saw, not just in Arizona, was precisely because they saw this political moment. And what's frightening is to one group, of course, is potentially it's a real moment of opportunity for many other groups that have a chance to speak to those values that are not getting their voice in Washington.
Right. So let's hope. I mean, I'm hoping that and it's funny because I think that when I saw the Democratic Party trying to co-opt the Occupy, I was like, dude, no. I mean, and when people say that Barack Obama is a socialist, I go, gosh, you didn't really know what that word means because he's not that far anywhere.
Right. So just as an example, though, all those words you just talked about,
Exactly, okay.
all of those words have been robbed of their meaning now.
Absolutely.
And so one of the benefits of art that is not linguistic, musical art, or puppetry, or something that doesn't rely on any of those words that anyone from any side has bereft of all meaning.
Absolutely.
Music carries a message that it can't be corrupted by in the way that language has been, where you can call Barack Obama a socialist, or where you can call the Tea Party
music
the
is
kind
music.
of the vanguard of the disenfranchised, which is ridiculous, or even to put them in this kind of moral equivalence between the Tea Party and the Occupy movement.
Right.
Get away from language for a moment, and everyone knows what it's about.
Exactly. And that's really what the wonderful thing is. And so I encourage everyone to take some time and to get away from your television and to go down to Occupy Boston, check out the Hog Festival online. And what's that, Honkfest?
Honkfest.org.
Okay.
Learn about all the crazy bands in your neck of the woods.
Right. And really just get into understanding. I mean, I think one of the most important things people need to do is to understand history. Because if you look at history, this has all happened before.
It has.
And actually it was always the artists who were on the forefront of it. So there we go, And I really would like to thank you, Kevin, for taking the time out.
Thank you, Jenna.
And everybody, power to the people.
Power to the people.
So Kevin, I really thank you for coming and all that great stuff.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Would you like a drink?
I would love a drink.
There you go.
I would.